I think people are realising that they still need to use quality people. Everybody sort of jumped in and they try to make these records and they haven't got a clue how to do it.
Absolutely.
And they end up being horrible.
Yep.
And you realise that it's actually the people that made these records that were more important than the studios and the gear.
Totally.
Welcome to the Production Masters Podcast, the philosophies and techniques behind making music according to the masters of music production.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Production Masters Podcast. I'm Owen Gillett from Ice Cocoon and productionmasters.net. I've just had a huge week. I've been on holiday and road tripping across Australia where I saw Ishan live in Melbourne, and that was totally awesome. This week I'm interviewing Simon Efemey. He's perhaps best known for producing Paradise Lost's seminal album Draconian Times, and he also did the Icon album and Shades of God by Paradise Lost before that. As you'll find out throughout this interview, though, in his list of credits, you've got quite a few hidden gems in there, such as Diamond Head and Pantera and Skid Row, doing bits and pieces. He's been doing it for a pretty long time, so along with some of the cool highlights of his career, we talk about how the industry's changed and about who knows what's coming for the future of music and for audio as well. Now, I know in the past I've apologised a couple of times for the poor quality of the audio, but this one really was that bad that I've had to think about it after this, that I'm going to really try to push it that my guests record their voice at their end into Pro Tools or whatever they've got and then send it, because this one was conducted through Messenger and like Facebook Messenger, and the quality of the line was so poor that I actually had to cut out portions of the interview, including a bit at the start where Simon's talking about where he was mentored by a guy from the 60s, and also where he took over a project which was a Diamond Head studio album, and he had to relieve the engineer who was not found to be up to the task, even though his credentials should have put him instead for that position. So those parts had to be cut out because they were just too degraded. And on top of that, my mic recording was screwed up as well and has some excessive gain noise on the channel, which I've tried to clean up, and I hope you can bear with me through this one. All right, let's just get on with it. This is my interview with Simon Efemey. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Production Masters Podcast. Today I have on the line Mr. Simon Efemey. How do you do?
How are you? All good?
Yep. We were just talking
live here from England.
we were just talking, so we actually know how each other are going. But the pleasantries, the what do you call it? The making things official.
Politeness.
Yeah, that's right. So we should start off with finding out about your past, like how you got into engineering, or what sparked your interest in recording in the first place.
I was a hi-fi fan when I was a kid. I got into record players and things, and I realised that I could improve the sound if I got another amplifier or a different cartridge style, sort of thing. So that always excited me, because I always liked music loud and, good and everything. And it was, how can I make it better? And also my mother used to run discos when I was sort of like 10, 11, 12. So I was always exposed to, loud sort of, exciting sounds type thing. So I was always keen in that way. And got into hi-fi and built up stuff, and then I was a singer. I was a choir boy and got into bands when I cover bands and this, that, and the other, and sort of started to learn about what microphones did and whatever. And cut a long story short, how I really got into it was I had a band, a heavy metal band in the 80s, and a friend of mine, we lived in a small town. A friend of mine was a DJ, and he bought a PA for his disco.
Yeah.
And he didn't really know how to use it. He sort of just bought it because he was doing bigger gigs. But when it came to it, he couldn't use it. So he came round telling me about it, and I said, well, if you want me to help out and whatever, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
And as a result, we got the PA to use for our band, which back in the day, then you had to have your own PA sort of thing, more so than now venues have house PAs or whatever.
Since we've arrived at the Paradise Lost era as well, I was going to mine you for a bit of info on those. Like, were they done to tape, those albums?
Yeah, all of them done to tape.
Yeah.
Even Draconian Times, which is just before the Pro Tool era, really.
Yeah.
I look back and think, Christ, if we'd have had that, but it's it was what it is what it is in that way, and the vibes were there, and we made some different noise, if you like, with the music. It was always the idea to get more melodic, and that was my thing. I always want to sing a tune. I always want a tune, and with the gothic vibe of the music, and it just sort of worked. And I worked Nick to get tunes going, and I learned all my stuff on tape. So obviously we didn't know any better back then. I mean, you had your Cubase and stuff like that, but you couldn't actually record stuff. That was only for MIDI stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So all done pre-tape, really.
Yeah, so
it was sort of.
So you were relying much more on So you were relying much more on the band performing their stuff in relatively few takes or whatever. Yeah,
oh yeah. I mean, obviously. I remember when I first started using Pro Tools properly, and I kept thinking, why is it taking so much? Why is this so much faster? Yeah, but you could do stuff, and obviously you had no rewind, fast forward, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
click, and it's and it's like, wow, this is amazing. But fond memories of all that stuff. We had some good times, good laughs doing it.
For sure.
And we, made some good songs.
Absolutely, yeah. You could see the definite from talking about the melodic aspect of those albums. You can see the progression as it went through. The melodic and the sort of accessibility, like in a good way, of the songs were sort of drawn out across that period, and that sort of continued as well. So it's and I think it's interesting also. People now might not realize how big an album Draconian Times was as well. It was pretty. It did a lot.
No.
Yeah, like the band, that really did a lot for the band, particularly in the UK, didn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, when we did it, I mean, it was top studios, and then I'll never forget the last day in the studio, and there was a big party, and they were signed to Zomba Publishing.
Yeah,
and like the massive party, everybody in the metal world came down, all the DJs, all the radio station DJs, all the journos, all the Kerrang, Metal Hammer, whoever, and it was like, wow, this is like fucking hell.
Yeah,
this is like happening sort of thing. And Ridge Farm was quite a big studio. It was a very expensive, good studio, with a good pedigree. And all these, and literally coach loads were coming. 2 coach loads of people came down. Zomba put that on. I was like, wow. And I remember that night it was really good. Andy Farrow came down, and we were all like going and playing it back, and everybody was saying, wow, this is going to be great. And it was really good times, But we did the record, we did it with fun, and the songs were there, and I enhanced it with the vocals and just try to make it as as commercial in a way, but still heavy, and not losing, not selling out, if you like.
Oh no, of course, yeah. No, I think it were the vocals the more challenging part of the album.
It was challenging, yeah, because you know, obviously, you know, I'm a singer myself, and you know, there's certain melody lines that I was trying to get him to do,
Yeah.
and you know, he got the lyrics and stuff, and I was trying to change. So, and obviously, back in that with tape, you had no choice but to do it. I mean, these days you can just do a few takes and make the bits and bobs, you know, auto tune it a bit or whatever, and you're there. You know, it's a lot easier to do. You know, it's still the same principle. It's just easier to do. But back then you had no choice but to actually just get it to tape. You know, but it didn't take. You know, we'd have an evening for a song, and we'd get it done. You know, I'd allocate. You know, we'd do sort of guitars and stuff and whatever in the day. You know, when we got down to Ridge Farm, because we'd actually done the drums and bass at Great Linford Manor, which is another quality studio.
Yeah.
And then we went down there. We just split the guitars, leads, and the vocals and stuff. You know, so. But I made him work. But I think he had a sore throat at the end of it.
Well, yeah, you certainly did make it work. Yeah. So you had a fair amount to do with sort of manicuring the melodies, or sort of making all that really work to its potential, right?
Yeah. You know, the ideas were there, and I just, you know, sweetened them up, if you like. You know, it was just like there were certain lines that I'd make so it was more melodic, if you like, and more catchy, whatever word you want to use, just so it would please my ears, really. I was being, to be honest, I was being completely selfish. I thought, well, I want to hear this how I want to hear it, and if it's giving me the chills or the fizz, whatever you say, hairs on your arm, then I'm sure a lot of other people will like it,
Yeah,
that's always been my philosophy, really. If somebody employs me to make a record, then I don't want to sit there going, well, this is okay, let's try and get it as good as we can. I'm loving it, if I'm sitting there in the studio listening to it over and over, if I'm still getting that vibe at the end of it, then that's got to be good,
That makes total sense. And a band, I think that's when it gets interesting, when a band starts to creatively do something they're not usually doing as well, and expanding out.
And they
makes it more exciting.
Greg, it does. And Greg and that loved it because he was more of a, should we say, more of a poppier fan than the others. So he loved his Depeche Mode and stuff like that. So of course, with it, more melodies coming into it, you could see they were, this is much better, shall we say?
Yep. Awesome. So, if we fast forward through to now, So, what's the sort of average mean of like what you're up to these days? Like, what's your main things that you're up to now?
Well, I've stopped doing so much metal stuff because I got more into doing. After there was a band called Orson that I was working with, who are pretty big over here. They had a #1 album, and I did some recording with them, and then got more into doing more pop rock stuff. I had all the Wild Arts things and Apes, Pigs, and Spacemen, all that sort of stuff. And then right at the moment, there's quite a big progressive thing going on.
Oh yeah.
And there's a band called Koyo who we're doing some work with, and there's another guy who's a friend of ours. He was in a band called the Wish Plants years ago, and he's just suddenly come up with all this progressive stuff that's sort of unbelievable. And I've been in the studio doing some stuff with him. Yeah, and doing that sort of thing, and obviously doing the live. I've been doing the live stuff as well, because as you know, the way the music business has gone, it's harder for bigger budget productions, and so everybody wants to do stuff for nothing. But doing some stuff. Me and Shane from Napalm, they've just got a bit of a studio together in their house, and we started doing some stuff together as well. So it's actually the recording side of it's starting to pick up again. It's quite good.
Oh, cool.
There's a heavy metal band called Solitary who sort of, is more a thrash sort of metal thing, and I did the vocals with them and mixed their album. That came out pretty well.
Cool.
So yeah, it's I say the Wonder Stuff album did well. That got into the top 40 over here in the UK. So that was nice to do. Nice to get a bit of chart action again. So
yeah, that's wicked.
It's all good.
I've heard of them.
Yeah.
What sort of music is that? Because I've heard of it, but I can't say I've actually heard it.
It's sort of indie pop, really. It's like they just did a tour with that band Ned's Atomic Dustbin. They did a dual headline tour of like 12 dates of all the the O2s over here. So pretty big venues. And I went out, did the front of house for them, which is all good.
So, so splitting between doing studio and mixing and live, how do you go about?
Yeah.
How do you go about preserving your hearing to some degree, at least?
God knows, Owen. I mean,
really?
God knows. I mean,
yeah.
Touch wood. I've been lucky. I mean, I'll say that now. As soon as I test my ears regularly, and I can still hear the highs, and
well, that's good.
Thankfully, I've been lucky because I've never really, done much, to be honest. I see all of these people going around with earplugs in and whatever all the time. I'll do it to a degree, or I won't expose myself. I won't go out and watch all the support bands and whatever from the front, or But just hopefully I'll keep going until I actually do get some deterioration, then I'll obviously have to quit.
Do you get any tinnitus or ringing?
I have done in the past, but that doesn't bother me.
Yeah,
it doesn't affect me.
So it just comes and goes sometimes.
Yeah, it comes and goes, so it's not too bad.
So,
and as I said, I do, I keep up to speed with hi-fi and actually deliberately test myself and whatever. So, but yeah.
So with the studio, mixing, have you got your own studio that you're mixing, doing your mixing and all that in, or?
No, I've got 3 or 4 that I use. There's a nice one now in Cambridge. He's just had it. Funnily enough, he bought a Neve VR, which was like the classic desk that I did all, the PL stuff on. They were £250,000, but he picked one up for like 30 grand.
Wow!
And it was a good studio anyway. But he's got that in there, and I did some stuff in there a couple of months ago with the progressive guy I've just told you about.
Yeah.
And it sounds brilliant. So that's, it's so good to be back on one of those boards. So that's sort of the primary thing. I've got a studio over in Wales called Foal. We use that quite a bit. It's like a residential place, and it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
So you can go, and then you just stay there, and, you can work from dusk till dawn sort of thing if you want,
distractions.
That's good. Yeah, and that's all good. Decent, nice old Trident desk.
Mm-hmm. So what percentage?
Genelec monitors, plenty of good stuff, and a good. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So what percentage of your work is doing mixing, like as in studio mixing?
Probably at the minute about. Probably 40% at the minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't
between that.
Yeah, you don't mind going from different studios with different monitoring, just sort of used to them all.
No, I'm used to. If I know the ones, I'm fine.
Yeah.
If I know the places, I'm fine. I've got reference stuff I can listen to, and people do get used, obviously, to a certain studio, but I quite like the variety in a way. I quite like the challenge. I like going from a different place to another place, get a different perspective on some things. People get too comfortable, I think, in their own thing, and I think that's a lot of the reason why so much stuff sounds the same these days, because they've all got their in-the-box rigs with all the same sample sounds and the same plugins and whatever, and it's just like, well, is there anything different? There's not much different,
Yep.
and it sort of
100%.
annoys me.
100%. Man, and I've sort of said the same thing to a bunch of the top guys are all like, oh God, saying the same thing, because it's just like, there's one snare drum and one kick drum for all the metal bands at the moment, and like, there are other options, guys. Yeah.
I know. Well,
Yeah.
How about recording the drummer with his sound?
Oh, there's an idea that could work. Yeah.
Yeah. So we look at John Bonham or Alex Van Halen or Stuart Copeland. And you imagine them being sampled with those sounds? I don't think so. Because you put a record on with any of those playing, and you instantly recognise them. So it's like a question of, well, try and replicate what the drum, what his own particular sound or whatever. So that's my vibe. I love the Pro Tools for the stuff you can do, the shortcuts, bits and pieces, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But
and not having to
generally
rewind.
Generally speaking, if I use sample sounds, it's a sample of their own kit.
Right.
That's the first thing I'll do. I'll take the sounds off their own kit.
Yeah.
And then if I have to replace stuff, it's usually with that.
What do you think?
So,
what do you think about amp simulators versus the actual miking and amp?
I like them. I've got to be honest. I do like the Kemper, but and the Axe Effects I was using on the weekend. Me and Shane were doing some stuff, and he's got an Axe Effects thing, and it was great. But I'll always go for miking the cab up first.
Yeah.
Like at the Foal studio, they've got a nice boogie. They've got a 5150, a couple of classic J&P Marshall. So that can do all, mic it up. Let's have a listen to that, But I've had some good results with the Kemper as well. I've profiled stuff. If it sounds good, Owen, I'll use it.
Yeah.
I've got no, I'm just interested in what comes out the black box at the end of it. I'm not bothered how I get it.
Totally.
If there's a great plugin that's amazing, which there are a couple, then fantastic. I'll use that, or I'll stick to me. If I'll use an outboard bit of kit or whatever. Whatever suits.
Yeah.
Whatever suits in that way.
So when you're mixing, do you like to mix back through a desk as well? Like.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that.
Personally.
Yeah, and is that partly for how it feels to do the work on the desk, or it's the sound you're getting as well?
Yeah, sort of, yeah. Bit of both. I mean, I'll mix in the box certain things, and then, if you've got an automated desk, I'll do stuff on that as well, Obviously, mix it, mixing in stems as well, which, can do now.
Yeah.
It's not so bad for recalls or things like that, I'm not, but yeah, whatever. I like having I like having the stuff come down. It's like if you're listening to a track and I just need a bit more top on that snare, and rather than to mess around in the box, you can just crank it on the channel on the board. And usually, if it's a good board, especially like that Neve I just was talking about, it sounds amazing, So so it's just easy for me. I can just lean over and do it in a matter of seconds, rather than to mess about, clicking on things and whatever. But having said that, I'll do that as well. There's no real rules. I mean, certain studios, pretty much all they've got is in the box, so that's how you have to go. But I do like that thing of everything coming down separate channels,
Yeah,
and just having that sort of flexibility and that type of thing. And also, you can put the proper outboard gear on. If you've got some 1176s sitting there or empirical lab stuff sit in the rack, then it should be used really.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Do you have is there a certain mastering guy that you like to use, or is it sort of different every time?
Well, Kevin Metcalf I've used a lot in the past.
Yeah.
To be honest, I can do it myself. Really, these days. I mean, a couple of those programs are so good.
I see
The
you
guy
do
in Cambridge.
You do mastering as well.
Yeah, I can do it. But I'd rather. I like to go somewhere though. If there's a budget, I like to go and just sit there and hear their perspective on it. Another set of ears, you know.
Yeah.
Yep. And then they say what they think and blah blah blah. But if I master stuff, I have to be away from it for a while. I'd never recommend mixing an album then going in and mastering it yourself like the next day or something.
Totally, yeah.
You can't do.
Yep.
You can't do that. Yeah, at least a month or something, and then come back to go. Oh, I didn't quite get the bass right on that track or whatever. So.
Yeah, that's it. Because the big part of it is the fresh perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why
totally.
It works going to someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't listen to records that I do for months after, when they're done. I don't even want to hear them. I'll listen to it. I'll come home and listen to it on my hi-fi to make sure it's all there. But then I can't listen to it because I just hear all the problems, if you know what I mean. And then years, then I can listen to stuff, after a while, and you've forgotten everything. You think, oh, this is actually all right,
Yeah, totally. Yep. Do you have a favourite production, one that you've done? One you think's like just
Apes, Pigs and Spacemen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm listening back to those two records these now, and again they were done on tape.
Yeah.
And they sound like they're really good. Even though I say it myself, it took me till fairly recently to listen to them and think, bloody hell, this was actually all right, well good.
What era was that?
Mid 90s.
Yeah.
Mid to late 90s. So yeah, sort of late. Well, yeah, 97, 96 to about 2000. 2 albums they did. They were on Music for Nations.
Yeah,
and they should have been a lot. They should have been a lot bigger than they were, but there was various problems, as often there are with bands, as you know.
Yeah.
But the records are well received, and the guy, he still does stuff now. Paul Myro, he does all his own stuff now. Because he was always into the engineering and stuff. But great vocalist and great band. There, some cracking songs. So it was right up my street, melodic sort of hard rock metal type of thing,
Yeah.
And people listen to the one record now and they can't believe it was done back then, So.
Oh, cool! I'll have to check it out.
But it does make me think of the quality of the studio. We did them in Park Street and Jacobs, and the quality of those studios. It does, that nth degree of quality. You do get that difference in sound, It's sort of, you can hear the quality of the Neve board or all the expensive mics, and it just, it's only a few percent up from stuff, but obviously, if the money's there for that sort of stuff, then
the little things all add up, yeah.
And I listen back and think, yeah, wow, that's good. But that's probably the favourite thing I've done.
Cool.
Apart from some of my own stuff.
Oh yeah,
but that's a different thing.
So is that is that a band, or are you just solo, or?
Well, yeah, me and Shane, we got a mad side project band called Absolute Power, which is like a tribute to new wave of British heavy metal type of thing.
Yeah.
We did it. We started it years ago, and we made the record. We did it with Russ Russell, all three of us, because we just did it for the crack, and I sing on it, and it's done all right. We had good reviews from it. We just sold it at gigs and stuff. Nothing really heavy duty. Did a few shows, but it's just more of a side project thing. But
yeah,
it's really good. It's fun. It's stupid lyrics and stuff. Just about.
Yeah,
Land of Steel and Sea of Horns and all that, sort of Steel Panther-ish, but but not in the Motley Crue way, more in the Dio Priest way.
Yeah.
So that's a good crack, you know.
Is that around the place somewhere on the internet? Is that anywhere that we can find it, or
Yeah, there's some on the internet. You can buy it. It's available.
on CD?
It's on iTunes and stuff. Yeah, it's on CD. I've got CDs of it. I'm not sure. I don't take that much. It was released on Shane's Fito label,
Right.
but we tend to sell it at gigs and that, napalm gigs or brewery gigs or anything associated with Shane or me. We tend to put it on there, and it sells fairly well, you know. So it's fun. You'd like it if you're into that old school metal sort of thing, you know.
So it's like real drums recorded in a studio somewhere, and it was done like it's a good proper recording, obviously.
Yeah, it was done proper. Yeah, we did the drums in chapel, and John Walker from Cancer plays rhythm guitar. Shane did the bass. I was the singer. We got various guest guitarists: Brian Tatler,
Cool.
Tim Ripper Owen. Tim Ripper Owen did a few screams for me because he could scream better than me. So just people who we knew really, you know, just having a bit of a crack really. And then we did a few shows. We did Download. That was a few years back.
Cool.
That was a couple of years back.
Yeah.
That was a good laugh. Mitch from Napalm played, and none of the guys from Rage and Speed, they were playing in it. It was sort of, you know, it's a bit like Brewery, the band. You know, you don't know who you're going to get if we do shows, apart from me as the singer stage saying. But just a bit of fun, really.
So it's kind of talking about you know, things being on the internet and records and all this sort of thing. It's obviously, because you've come from a time when obviously there was money available to make good quality recordings and to support artists, and all of that worked with a sort of solid infrastructure, which was the old music industry. Obviously, it's a weird. It's like a weird time now where almost, don't know if anyone's completely sure what's next or what's possible, but how's that affected? Obviously, it's affected all the engineers and the people recording bands, but what have you got to add to that? Like maybe the way it's affected your work or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it has affected. Obviously, there's not the budget there anymore. A lot of the studios have gone by the wayside because of it. You know, the expensive, the $1,000 a day studios are all gone, really, apart from certain ones in London, which, you know, the peak of the mountain, if you like, is so much smaller now of the sort of acts that can afford.
Yeah.
Like that's, you know, the top pop acts or the top rock acts.
Yep.
Everybody else really just has to make do. Obviously, it's affected, you know, as a producer, it's affected fees as well, because people don't, you know, the budget's just not there really. So I can't really say anything about it because that's just how it is. You know, I don't think anything's going to change now because it's there. I think people are realising that they still need to use quality people. You know, everybody sort of jumped in and they try to make these records and they haven't got a clue how to do it.
Absolutely.
And they end up being horrible.
Yep.
And you realise that it's actually the people that made these records that were more important than the studios and the gear.
Totally. Or you get amateurs doing their own productions and think it can go to a expensive mastering engineer and they'll just
God, I mean, some of the sites on yeah, some of the stuff you read on Facebook. I mean, I'm part of some of these you know, groups, if you like, engineering groups, producer groups, and some of the stuff you read and you just think, Jesus Christ, you know, it's like, what on earth are you going on about? So
yeah.
I think it'll come back round again. I'm sure that people realise that you've got to have decent engineers and producers again. I think that's sort of starting to happen. It's a bit like vinyl, you know. Yeah. Everybody wants vinyl again. They realise that MP3s actually do sound like shit, and you know, you got a good CD or a good piece of vinyl, and it's in a different league, you know.
Absolutely, so, yeah. No,
But I don't think it'll ever change. I don't think it'll go back to anything like it was.
Well, it's hard to. It's just hard to imagine a way where it'll be there'll be a way to monetize recorded music again in a way that,
Yeah,
I mean, because surely as long as the internet exists, people are going to get music for free, basically. So
that's it. That's it. So there's nothing we can do about it, really. So you've got to accept that, and I'm lucky because I can do both sides of it. I can go out and mix live, so I can make a living doing that side of it, or the studio. I mean, a lot of studio people, I'm sure, have fallen by the wayside now. That probably I knew 20 years ago, who probably aren't even in the music business anymore because of just the way it's gone. Yeah, and as I said, I'm fortunate enough to have been brought up on the live side of it, and that, if anything, has got better. Because everybody wants to go to festivals. It's like the festival's king now, isn't it? And a lot of bands are making their living from decent live gig fees and merchandise. So while the live gigs are on, then the engineers the decent live engineers can get work. So I'm not complaining in that way. It'd be nice to go back and have a nice Draconian Times budget or whatever. 6 weeks in the plush studio, but as I said, unless you like Ed Sheeran or Coldplay or somebody now or whatever, then those days are gone, really. For your, more of your middle bands, if you like,
Yeah, no, that's right. Unless you're an Iron Maiden or someone that's already established and you've got you can support it. I mean, but
unless you're Premier League band, then back in the day you could be an unsigned band. As I said, that band Apes Pigs. I mean, they've signed to Music for Nations on the back of great songs and that. But we went in quality studios. We were going in studios that were like nearly £1,000 a day.
Wow!
Just to do the first album.
Yeah.
That would never happen now.
Yeah.
So, you're lucky to get £1,000 for an album, let alone, It's like, well, actually, Cancer. Cancer. They want me to do their new record.
Yep.
Because I did, 2 of the Cancer albums back in the day. Carl rang me up the other day and said, "Can you come and will you record the drums and that and mix it?" Because John lives in Spain now and he can do his guitars and vocals, but their budget for that's something like $6 or $7
right
for the whole shebang, which is nothing, as considering inflation and that. Whereas back in the day, the budget would have been probably 20-25 grand, and that was like 25 years ago. So it just shows the way it's changed, but that's how it is.
Yep. Do you have any idea what the budget might have been for like Draconian Times?
Can't remember, to be honest.
But probably
quite
more,
a bit.
Probably more than that, yeah.
Yeah, we've been, 6 weeks in 6, 7, 42. It would have been 30 grand studio, and then 10 me or whatever it was. Plus the point, obviously the royalty point. So it would have been 40, 50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'd been 50, 60 grand, something like that. Which wasn't insane, but still, back then, when you think about that, you'd never get that now, for a band on that level,
Yeah. No, and it's not quite like, I think the Black Album cost $1 million or something like that.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah. They took 9 months to do it or whatever it was. Same as Def Leppard, Hysteria and Pyromania took months and months and months and cost millions, but obviously they recouped it all because it sold so many.
Yeah,
that's it. Draconian obviously recouped as well. It recouped probably in the first week because it sold so many in Germany. It went in the charts at like number 3 or something.
Yeah.
And obviously that's when stuff actually did sell. So again, that would have recouped very quick. Well, it did, because I remember the first royalty check I had off it, and I nearly fell to the floor. So it was like,
yeah.
And that was only just after a year or so. So it's like, okay, but yeah, nowadays it's all changed. But you just got to go with it, Owen. As I said, a lot have fallen by the wayside. I'm lucky enough to still be doing it, and if I'm doing it live, I still enjoy the live thing. If I'm in the studio, I still enjoy that. So it's all good stuff, you know.
Yeah, no, that's wicked. Now, I
Good.
think I read on, I can't remember, somewhere on the internet, did you mix Pantera, like for one gig somewhere or something like that?
I did. I recorded them and mixed B-sides.
Oh, is that right?
We recorded, yeah, we recorded a gig at Brixton Academy, and then we went in the studio for 3 days and mixed. It was on that Planet Caravan EP.
Oh, right. Was it live tracks, yeah?
Some live stuff, yeah. And Diamond came in and he redid all the guitars because they weren't happy with the guitar sound. There was a problem, and he literally came in and played the whole gig in Battery Studios. It was great. So he came in and just did it, you know, one take sort of thing almost.
Yeah.
And then we mixed it. Me and Vinnie Paul had a care. And then that's how I knew Anselmo. And then when I went and did Crowbar,
yeah,
he was over there at the time. So there was all that New Orleans, you know, click. So that was all good. That's
a pretty cool thing to have in the notch in the belt or whatever you call it, isn't it? Like the
Well, because I was doing stuff with the Wild Hearts, and they were signed to Warner's, if you like, at Universal now, and Dante Benuto was the A&R guy, and we were doing a lot of stuff with him. And sort of the mandate was those bands would come over. We need a good engineer, if you like. Who do you recommend? And he was always putting my name forward, so I did that, the Pantera thing, and also Skid Row I did as well. Same thing.
Oh, wicked. Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they recorded the gig and went in Battery Studios and mixed it, and some of it was used for B-sides or whatever.
Was this?
But,
did the Skid Row one have any fix-ups on it, or was that just live?
Just live, yeah. Just purely live, yeah. Sebastian Bach came to the studio. I found him really good, a good laugh, you know. I met him afterwards, sort of thing. There was an after party, I remember, and then he came the next day.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't getting on with the rest of the band even then. You know, he came on his own, and the others came at a different time. But he was fine. I remember actually playing him Forever Failing PL because it was not long masters.
Oh, that's
I remember
awesome.
He said. Yeah, he said, what are you up to at the minute? And I said, I've just done this. And I love that track personally. And I played it to him. He was, that's well cool, you know. So
yeah,
he was good. But yeah, things like that. That was all good with the Warners thing, you know. It's, that, you know, got me, opened a few doors to the higher echelons, if you like. But Vinnie Paul was a good laugh, you know. He was good fun.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Telling me the stories of Terry Date and stuff. So that was all good stuff. Yeah, so I've got all that. I've got those nice little credits as well. You know, working with some of the more mega bands. But it's I did a track with Helmet as well.
Yeah.
For film that Johnny Mnemonic. I could never say that word. But he came again. That was the same thing. They came over. They wanted somebody in the UK. Who'd you recommend? My name came up, so I went in a couple of 3 days, did a track with them. It came out really good, just what they wanted. So that was all good, you know. So it was good times. Those mixing with the royalty.
Yeah, totally. So I don't know where I'm up to with questions now. I think like. So, what you were saying at the start when the connection was garbling up a bit, who did you say was initially mentoring you and showing you some tricks and that sort of stuff in the studio?
It was a guy who lived in Stourbridge. He used to do the sound for the Hollies and the 3 Degrees and Shakin' Stevens, who were like big acts in the UK.
From like the 60s? Or even...
60s, the Hollies, 70s and 80s, yeah. And he was their front of house guy, basically. And he lived in our town. And, you know, obviously when you live in a small town, you get to know everybody. And he had a PA company of his own, and I got to know him, and we used to go around his house Well, I used to go around his house and he'd show me a few bits and pieces. Not too much really, but just, a few tips of wisdom, shall we say. So, and obviously I was in bands myself. People like Big Shirt. Obviously, God rest his soul now, he died. He was doing the same for Slipknot and that, but, he was all part of that scene. Big Mick, who does Metallica.
Yeah.
We were all part of the same scene,
Okay.
JB's. Go on, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I was listening to what you're saying.
Yeah, so, we were all that Midland scene of all those engineers and people. We all sort of came out. We all sort of, we were all bitchy towards each other, as you do. You know what it's like. But it was fun in a way, But at the same time, everybody respected everybody.
Yeah.
Because people were getting work and upgrading and doing okay, and sort of, a few of us have survived. But yeah, I'd say as regards college or anything like that, nothing. There's no such thing then. It was almost frowned upon, to get into the music industry.
Yep.
But I do lectures sometimes. A friend of mine runs a couple of the academies here in the UK,
Okay.
and I've been and done lectures for the kids and that, And that's quite fun, quite interesting.
I think that's really cool if someone like you's doing it. I think that I'm not quite sure how I feel about like a lot of people that almost are professional teachers, but it's like they've never actually really recorded a real band, or they've never it's like it's just,
they haven't. I remember we used to work at Square Centre for a long. Me and Russ, when Russ Russell was my engineer, we had about a block of about 5 or 6 years, and we worked at a studio in Nottingham called Square Centre.
Yep.
Good studio, but they used to have a teacher thing going on there. I don't know where the pupils came from, but the guy who was teaching them was an idiot.
Yeah.
He used to come into our sessions. He was a nice guy, but he hadn't got a clue really what he was going on about. And he used to come into our sessions and sit down, because they were like 9 to 5ers, and we just, he'd come in at 5:30 or whatever, and he just couldn't believe what we were doing. What are you doing that? You're doing this, you're doing that, And a couple of times we went in and on his lessons and got him to do stuff, So I remember taking a multi-tracking once and saying, we'll get him to mix this. Some crazy heavy metal.
Yeah.
And we gave them the actual master that we'd done that had been released.
Yep.
And they had the multi-track, and it was just like, I hadn't got a clue what to do with it, And he hadn't, the teacher guy. And Brian, his name was, I'll never forget his name, Brian. But he'd never done a proper album or, anything real, shall we say, So it does amaze me how these people, qualify to actually to do it, So I quite like doing it. At least I can speak from proper experience,
I mean, you can see when I guess it's a way that people are trying to make money as well, doing education or whatever. I guess you call it education, but I don't know. Yeah. I feel like maybe sometimes there's no substitute for actually just doing it. Like if you want to, what's the point of training forever or teaching forever? It's like, just what do you actually want to do? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, the way I look at it, it's like teaching people how to shoot a gun or being in the army, but there's no substitute for actually going to war. It's like you can teach people all day, but until you get them in a live gig situation or in a studio situation when you're surrounded by 4 guys stoned out of their minds or drunk all the time or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Then how'd you deal with that? That's not being in the classroom.
That's it.
That's what you got to deal with.
Because all the, being ideological about the sound side of it and, frequencies and that sort of stuff doesn't mean anything once you're working with a band and you've got to get the, squeeze the juice out of the band,
Exactly. You've got to have that arsenal of knowledge in the back of your mind.
Oh yeah,
But you don't go spouting it out to bands and stuff unless you always get one individual in some band who'll be interested in that side of things, and then you can talk to them on that level. But generally speaking, they're not interested in any of that side of it. So you just got to crack on and do, But a lot of these kids, they just don't get it. They have no idea how to deal with the situation. I've been in a couple of studios where they've employed kids straight out of college, and you can just see the horror on their faces of what's going on.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, But there's no, in the field, as we call it. You got to learn it in the field. You can't learn it at school. As simple as that. It's you just can't. I suppose it's like being a doctor or somebody, isn't it? You can learn all the stuff, but until you come across something, you've actually got to stitch them up or
That's
do
it.
something.
When you've got to take a sharp knife and cut into a person, like, it all becomes real. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you suddenly end up in some shithole of a venue, and you've got a crap PA, and people are baying for blood. You've got to make it happen. So there you go, Owen.
So, and does the same thing happen, when you've had a band come to you to work with you, and like you've got to actually tell them how things really get done, or like? Yeah.
I mean, a lot of bands have no idea.
Instead of like cobbling it together in the computer, and each person.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with today. Is so many bands are doing that. So a lot of musicianship's gone out the window. People aren't. When we were kids, we were in the rehearsal room for 6 months before we'd even do a gig. Just trying to get tight, and the people aren't doing that now. So you hear a decent record or a decent recording, and then you go and see them live, and they're awful.
Yep.
Woeful, can't sing in tune, whatever, blah blah, because they just think it's so much easier. That's why I don't think there's any decent bands anymore, because there's just not enough put into the groundwork. This is what I've been saying to some of these kids at these colleges, 18 years old, and they're saying, what do you think of the new bands? I said, well, there aren't any, are there? I said, who's replacing all the old bands? You go to these festival lineups now, all these bands are dying off and stuff, and there's no real big megastars replacing them, because there's just not that. It's a quick fix. There's not the quality of songs anymore. There's no state. It's frustrating in that way. But I'm sure it'll come round again. I'm sure there'll be finally another movement or something that will happen. When, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a complicated. I think it's a bunch of reasons why things have ended up that way. Partly with the money side of the industry being that the rug being pulled out from under it as well. I suppose that's affected it, supporting
lots
bands.
Of different.
So yeah, it's pretty. I know there was a
lot.
Like Download Festival came to Australia this year, or it was called Download Festival, and I can't remember the headlining act was Korn and then some other band, and it was like, man, is this really what it's come?
Exactly.
Is this what it's come to? There was there was no
Exactly.
Oh my God!
It's not Judas Priest. It's not Sabbath. It's not Queen. It's not AC/DC anymore. It's not
No, it's so far from
massive mega bands. It's not Van Halen. It's not
No.
You know what I mean? It's. I know some of those bands still exist, but they're barely. And in 5-10 years they'll all be gone. Your Iron Maidens, all that, they'll all be gone. So who's coming through? No one, as far as I can see. So God knows. Well, I don't even want to think about that. But I think half the reason is because there's just not enough, fire and desire anymore. It's too easy for people to do it.
It's too easy to just churn out a bunch of average stuff and
crap. Yeah,
and it's too easy.
Yeah, I see it. Go on.
Oh, and what was I saying?
It's too easy. I mean,
I feel like no, you go. I'll think.
No, I was gonna say, when I do some of these tours with Napalm and the support bands, and they're just all the same.
Yeah.
And it's just like, really, it's just like, really.
That is.
Can't you think of anything better or original to do?
Totally.
But
that is what I was going to say. It's the connectivity of all of the internet has, I think, undermined people being a bit more insular with their creativity. It's made them much more conscious of, like, I don't know, just even if you are not trying to, you're constantly infiltrated by everything as an influence. And I think influences come subconsciously, whether you want them to or not. So the more you're exposed to everything, it's made things more homogenized. And it's going to take...
Totally. I totally agree.
And it's going to take people to be more... to really put some thought into finding a creative, direction with what they do. I mean, obviously some bands do it, but, it's like you're saying with Paradise Lost, they went in... they followed their creativity and did their own thing.
Yeah.
And,
Well, yeah, it's like, to me, the last major music thing that happened was grunge, and that was 25 years ago, 28 years ago, whatever. So what does that tell you? You know what I mean? I mean, they had their own sound, which is great, the Seattle thing and everything, but really, apart from a few small genres, especially in the metal side of it, you can all these subcategories and bits and bobs, but there's been nothing major worldwide since then.
I suppose black metal. I mean, and some of that, but
but that's not. I'm talking more on a commercial basis,
right?
Something like grunge was like punk. It affected everybody around the world. In the charts, everything. I'm not talking about certain black metal, this, that. I'm talking about a major thing that happened, and there really hasn't been anything since then. I don't think. Because you had punk, you had new romantic, you had all the heavy metal stuff, new wave of heavy metal stuff, and you had, thrash metal, Metallica, all that, which were big all around the world, and then up to grunge. But after that, really, nothing really that was earth-shattering that's changed, and of late, nothing at all really. Just these mad little subgenres of stuff that do okay. But as we've just been saying, where are the big headliners for all the festivals? Out of these genres, they aren't there, and it's not there. So
and anything that is sort of a lot of things that are coming out. I mean, I suppose maybe metalcore and that melodic sort of thing. I mean, that's maybe another slight variation, which but I mean,
it's they're just variations, though.
That's
there's nothing. There's to me, there's nothing. There's no. It's not like goth. I mean, that was a pretty big one. As well, but that was again before grunge. You had all that, the goth, Sisters of Mercy, the Cult, the Mission, those sort of bands, Fields, the Nephilim, which obviously influenced Paradise Lost, all that stuff. But that was, but that was a big genre on its own. There was a worldwide thing, and as I said, these days it's just not happening. And like what you,
I think if you've been around listening to music for a while now as well. Anything that's coming out, it's like we've heard this kind of before, or at some stage.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, and it's
no
good
worries,
to finally
mate.
catch you. So I appreciate it.
Yeah,
and
stay in touch.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent, mate. Good to talk to you.
All right, cool.
I'll let you know. I'll pass any good bands on that I come across.
Definitely. Please do. Yeah, I'm always up for something cool, something new. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right,
mate.
Take care.
You take it easy.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.